Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're excited today to talk about the Cameron Center of Finance and Securities Analysis. With me today, we've got John Lundquist as our guest speaker. My name is Jared Barlow. I'm the Executive Director of Admission. I'll let John introduce himself and go into a little bit more detail about his background and how he became the Program Manager for the Cameron Center for Finance and Securities Analysis, and then we'll dive into some questions. So this will be a chance for our participants to also type in questions into the chat feature. Feel free to type in those questions and we'll add them into our discussion today as we talk about the Cameron Center for Finance. So with that, John, let's start with an introduction, go into your background, a little bit about yourself and what you do. And then I've got a whole bunch of questions to talk about the center.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jared. And the first thing I'll say is what I normally say when I meet people here is I just coincidentally have the same last name as the business school, so I'm not actually related to anybody. Don't be nervous. A little bit about me. So I grew up in New England in Maine, Vermont, studied economics and earth science undergrad, and then spent about 6 years in the oil industry. So I was, doing environmental consulting for big oil companies, and that kind of led me to the University of Oregon. I came here to get my MBA, and I actually studied sustainability. But while I was in that program, I became very interested in the financial side of business and making the business case for any type of sustainable initiative or any initiative overall. I ended up getting my master's in finance as well. And during that time, I had a couple different roles. I did a lot of consulting in the clean energy space. I worked for a small venture fund called Coast to Crest Fund, which is located here in Eugene, Oregon. And I also founded a startup in the regenerative ag space. Doing all that kind of gave me a broad range of experience. And since I had been a program manager in the oil industry before, I was asked to become the program manager for the Cameron Center here. It's a great role. I love doing it and love to still be part of University of Oregon. So got a lot of different experiences under my belt. And right now, yeah, still working with the Cameron Center. So it's great. Thank you again for having me, Jared.
Well, John, we're excited to have you today, talk with candidates about the Cameron Center for Finance and Securities Analysis. So let's maybe dive in a little bit deeper. What is the function of the center? How does the center engage with graduate students? Specifically, we'll kind of focus our efforts with MBA, but we know kind of the Cameron Center also focuses in with our master's in finance students as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of these that overlap. But today we'll focus a lot of our conversation around the MBA program and the Center for Finance and Securities, the Specialization for Finance and Securities Analysis that ties into the MBA. So I guess
Sure.
first off, let's talk a little bit more about the center itself. What is the center? How does it engage with graduate MBA students?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Jared. And just kind of a general broad overview of the MBA program. One of the things that really drew me into University of Oregon were the centers of excellence. So obviously they have the Cameron Center for Finance and Securities Analysis focused on finance and accounting. We've got the Sustainability Center, entrepreneurship, sports marketing. And really, it allows a relatively broad program like an MBA to really focus on a specific area that you're interested in. So the Cameron Center overall, it really helps prepare students to really make an immediate impact post-graduation. And we focus on really linking students up with financial, banking, and investment industries, in the Pacific Northwest, but also, internationally and across the country. So the Duck network extends far and wide. We've got some great faculty, and that was, again, one of the draws for me. There are a lot of great thought leaders in kind of corporate finance, mutual fund analysis, corporate tax accounting, portfolio analysis, and some more kind of cutting edge areas like cryptocurrency and blockchain, that kind of thing. So really, the Cameron Center overall just focuses the, study on finance. So anybody that's interested in kind of money and diving deeper into, how to raise funds, or, really just looking into corporate finance. That's kind of the Cameron Center in a nutshell there.
Now, as students come to you and they kind of, talk about the opportunity to do a specialization in their MBA centered around finance and securities analysis, what does finance and security analysis really mean? So what kind of, things should students be aware of? Like, what are the topics that make up finance and securities analysis that students are going to be learning kind of in their classes? And then we'll dive deep into kind of, the specialization in a minute.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, finance in general is basically the study of money, and how money flows through businesses, through the economy, and just in general. So we really look at how money is driving business. Securities analysis, that's more focused on basically the analysis of, they call them tradable financial instruments. So, think stocks, bonds, options, that type of thing, basically how they're priced, how they're traded, and how you can make money off of them. So that's, in a nutshell, that's finance, and then securities analysis. And really, anybody that's in the Cameron Center is interested in those things and kind of how they drive business. So, I would say that students take a variety of paths, and we're going to jump into that later. But at the end of the day, I mean, what really drew me in was realizing that, okay, money is driving almost, every business at the end of the day. So figuring out how that works and how you can become a more efficient business is really the heart of this center.
Well, let's talk about that since you brought it up. What are kind of the pathways? So students doing an MBA, what are kind of the pathways that they go into? I've heard folks talk about, through the center, maybe it's through corporate finance, or some become analysts, or, what are we known for with those kind of pathways through the MBA? What could students potentially do after they do an MBA?
Sure.
First inside, and then we'll talk about pathways afterwards.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the other things that I really liked about University of Oregon is because it's a relatively small program, you really get specialized individual attention. So in reality, you can choose your own path and enter any one of those industries that you just mentioned. So, people typically go towards roles in corporate finance. So think, maybe Intel, right? Figuring out how to efficiently manage funds, and maybe you're looking at one of the specific units at Intel and managing their balance sheet and their income statement and everything. People also go through entrepreneurship type roles. People found companies, go work in treasury. They can do asset management, or financial management, basically managing money or wealth for individuals. We always have a few people do that. And then there's the banking side, where people, every once in a while we have somebody go into an investment bank, but I would say more people from the MBA program go into more of a commercial banking role. So that might be, working for a credit union here in Oregon, and managing relationships with businesses in town. So, there's really a wide variety of paths that you can take. But again, finance as a kind of platform really can launch you into a bunch of different roles. So, and actually one thing, I know we'll bring this up later, but this is easier said than done. I would say the best outcomes I've seen have been when students come in with a relatively clear idea of what they want to do. And obviously that doesn't always happen, but say you want to be a investment banker. If you come in on day one knowing that, then you're basically focusing your energy on a specific goal, specific target, and then we're going to be there to help you achieve that goal. So I mean, I came in myself not really knowing specifically the path I was on or path I wanted to take. So both options are definitely viable, but if you can have a pretty good idea of what you want to do at the end, I definitely recommend it.
So let's dive deeper into kind of that topic of if you know kind of what you want to do, or even if you don't, what are kind of the required specialization courses that students would take to kind of either do that deeper dive into that focus if they know what they want, as opposed to, taking electives here and there and then kind of fine tuning their path once they really know one of those areas that they want to focus in on. So maybe
Sure.
core or core courses in the specialization, and then what are some of the electives that students could potentially take to kind of fine tune their path if they didn't have a direct path in mind.
Sure, sure. And that's again, one of the beautiful pieces about the MBA program is everybody's going to take a core group of classes. So, regardless of if you're in sports marketing, finance, or sustainability, you're going to take basic accounting, finance, operations, marketing, management, that type of thing. Then if you're in the finance specialization, you're going to get more classes specifically focused on accounting and finance. So think financial statement analysis, looking at the balance sheet, income statement and statement of cash flows for different publicly traded companies. You can take a class called Master's Investment Group, which is you're basically an analyst trying to find value in publicly traded companies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You can do classes like corporate finance and valuation, and then look at investments and kind of portfolio analysis. So those are really some of the core courses within the specialization for finance. And then there's probably 10 or 15 electives where you can really dive deeper into some of those more specific topics that I mentioned. So you can look at derivatives, international business, taxation, impact investing, commercial banking, like I mentioned earlier. There's a venture capital and private equity course that's actually, it's now called Alternative Investments. And it's taught by one of our top professors, Steve McKeon. And that's a really cool course because it looks at venture capital, real estate, and then it also looks at cryptocurrency and blockchain. So it's kind of a cutting edge course. You can look into hedge funds, more advanced topics in corporate finance, or some other banking courses. And, really that was kind of a fast overview. All this information is found on our website too, if you want to look deeper into it. But the real moral of the story is you're going to get the broad overview from the MBA program. And then within the finance specialization, you can really dive deeply into any of the topics that you're interested in. So it gives you a chance to really explore some of the new, or some things that might be new to you. We've got some great faculty and really a wide variety of courses. So that's one of the selling points for sure.
So as you look back over the years, what have been the most popular classes? I can think of a few, but I'd like to get your thoughts on
Sure.
most popular finance classes.
Yeah, so some of the popular courses, like I mentioned, alternative investments, that's a really, really popular one. Steve's a great professor. Corporate finance and valuation is another course that people love to take. It's extremely hard, but really rewarding. That's taught by Professor Brandon Julio. And it really gives you a nice baseline for different types of financial modeling, and really a lot of the things you're going to be doing later on in the program kind of build off the skills that you learn there. Brandon he's a great professor, and he came from a background in international finance, so he's got some excellent stories. Some other really interesting classes that people enjoy. Impact investing is the top one. Obviously, ESG style investing is kind of a hot topic right now. So, people are generally interested in that, and that's taught by Professor John Chalmers. He's the head of the department, great professor as well. But I would say, really any of the courses that we offer, they're all good courses. So specifically, whatever you're interested in, you're going to find a professor that's also interested in that. And one of the great things is, since it is a relatively small program, they have time to chat with you and talk to you about that. So one of the things I loved was, really finding the professors that were passionate about the subjects they were teaching, and it's kind of hard not to find that here. So it's really good thing.
I think one thing that we can note for everybody that's watching is usually our finance faculty win the Teaching and Excellence Awards every year. Some of them win them year after year, but it's interesting that they're with our finance faculty in the College of Business, which is kind of exciting that a lot of students end up taking finance courses, even if they're not specializing in finance, they'll take additional finance classes just because the faculty are so amazing.
Definitely.
One of the questions that we have is, what resources are available to students that kind of come through the Cameron Center for Finance? I know you send out a lot of emails every week that I see with opportunities for students. So maybe talk through, what are some of the activities that are either sponsored by the Cameron Center for Finance and Security Analysis, or this Cameron Center introduces students to, or students participate with?
Sure. Yeah, there's a variety of different things, and obviously they look a little bit different today than they did in years past due to COVID. But we're obviously being flexible and really still providing those resources to students. So one of the things that we really like to push is called case competitions. So those are basically student competitions, and there's a variety of different formats, but basically you get a team together and either look at a business case or do a valuation of a company or pitch a company, and put together a presentation and compete against other students. So right now we have actually there's a student group that's in the Pacific Northwest Regional Championship for the CFA competition, which is Chartered Financial Analyst. They're competing tomorrow for the top Pacific Northwest regional spot, and they basically did a valuation on Columbia Sportswear, which is a company that's based up in Portland. So they look at all the information for the company. They get public disclosures and earnings reports, and try to basically predict what the future value will be, and decide today whether the current stock price is over or undervalued. So they made it through the first round of the competition because their report was really good, and now they're pitching against some of the other companies or some of the other schools tomorrow. So we'll see what happens, and good luck to all of them. We also have a great case competition called MINT, which stands for MBA Impact Investor Network Training. And that's a little bit different format. That competition, the students select a early stage startup company that is making either social or environmental impact, and they go pitch the company to a group of investors. And basically, so University of Oregon has one company that they're pitching, and University of Washington has another, and some of the other schools, they all have their own company. And basically the group of investors decides, okay, which school is making the best pitch and why. So case competitions, they're all over the place, and you can basically find anything you want. So they've got investment banking competitions, and different types. So it's really, really great stuff. In addition to that, we have a lot of experiential learning trips that we go on. So the center sponsors a trip normally during the fall, the winter, the spring term, and then in the summer. So normally we go visit companies up in Portland. So, think Nike, Columbia, Keen, different types of big banks up there. We go up to Seattle in the winter. So, think Amazon, Microsoft, that kind of style of company. and then down to San Francisco in the spring. So, companies like BlackRock, Salesforce, any big company in the Bay. And it's really kind of a great thing having this extensive duck network, because people that went to University of Oregon are now spread out in all these great companies around the Pacific Northwest and the world. So when we're heading to San Francisco, we can, kind of tap some of the alumni and say, hey, can we come visit? And they're always really excited to see the students. In the summertime, typically we would do a trip called Engaging Asia. And that's more of an international business trip. So in the past, we've gone to different cities in China. So think Shanghai, Beijing. One group went to Vietnam, so they went to Ho Chi Minh City. People have visited Singapore. They were scheduled to go to Tokyo this last year, but obviously COVID kind of threw a wrench in that gearbox. But I think next summer, or whenever the next trip is going to be, they're still kind of slated to go to Tokyo. And the great thing about Engaging Asia is, it really kind of varies year to year. So it's not the same companies, it's not the same cities, but it's kind of where do we have alumni, and where's a great place to visit. So when I was there, we visited Silicon Valley Bank in Shanghai and a couple other big names. It was really exciting to see how the different cultures work, and just get a chance to visit some alumni on a different continent. In addition to that, we have a lot of networking events. There's speakers that come in, and there's quite a few different student groups that pull from kind of all those things. So we have a group called Market Chatter, which is a student-led group that focuses on kind of capital markets and trends in capital markets. So they get together every couple weeks and chat about current industry trends, bring in speakers and that kind of thing. And we got a couple other student groups too. So again, there's a lot of variety, and it's really whatever you're looking for.
Now, for some of those folks that are watching, that may sound intimidating, right? There's so much going on in the world of finance, and there's so many pathways within the world of finance. Do students need to have a background in finance to be successful, to jump in and do an MBA, or can anyone come in regardless of undergrad background and learn those topics and be successful in the world of finance?
Yeah, I would say, it was really the second option. You can come with any background, and at the end of the day, really what you're trying to do is solve problems. So I think people tend to discount their past experience when coming to the MBA program. They think basically they got a clean slate of paper and they're starting fresh, but a lot of the skills you have from the past are really just being fine-tuned within the program. So, I'll take myself as an example, right? I was a program manager in the oil industry, so I was doing a lot of problem solving, and I worked on budgets, and I had my own P&L that I, was responsible for. So I was familiar with different financial terms, but I didn't have, really some of the industry specific stuff. When I came into the MBA program and the MSF program, I was really adding some of those tools to my toolbox. So can I do some of these statistical analyses? Can I do, this modeling, or can I learn about, portfolio management and kind of how to manage risk? And so it's really, to me, you're just taking hard skills and adding them to your portfolio skills in general. So it can really be anybody. And I think actually one of my friends from the program that graduated with me, her name's Chloe. She's a great example. She was actually a kindergarten teacher before she came to the program. And she absolutely, wanted to change careers, focused on finance. And, she did an amazing job learning the skills. And now she's a commercial banker and absolutely loves her job. So that's kind of a nice story where, she obviously was solving problems in the classroom, but didn't have that finance focused skill set. She came in, got the skills she needed, and then, really takes a combination of her past experience with the skills she learned in the program to, do a great job at commercial banking and relationship management. So if you need a lender in Eugene, let me know and I'll hook you up with Chloe.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, so we talked a little bit about those skills, and I think that's a great point to bring up to candidates because you always take what you've learned previously with you into the future endeavor. So speaking of those kind of activities, if someone does or doesn't have a finance background, what are activities or things that students may be able to do on their own as they prepare to start an MBA program that may help them? Whether that be, would you recommend, learning a programming language, brushing up on, specific terminologies? We kind of do some onboarding over the summer to get students ready if they're admitted. But are there things that students can work on, or potential candidates can work on to kind of fine tune and start learning about finance skills and terminologies before they start a finance program?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, basically everything you just mentioned can help. I would say one of the places where people have problems is if you're trying to learn the finance skill as well as the coding skill, right? So if you're trying to learn Python at the same time you're trying to learn a different financial model, then that's when people get into trouble. So anything you can do to kind of front load that type of effort. So think Excel, you want to be as good at Excel as you possibly can. And there's tons of, free resources out there. Excel Jet's great. There's free programs. And I think we're actually also offering a new Excel course to students prior to entry, which is taught by Eric Ford. It's an amazing program. Python, which is a computer coding language, it is being integrated more and more into the program. So the better you are with that, the easier it's going to be, right? So there's a lot of, again, free YouTube videos and kind of free resources out there where you can get familiar with Python. And then also really just any general finance knowledge that you can learn before the program is going to help you. So, you should be studying the news, what's happening, reading the Wall Street Journal and seeing, okay, what's going on with big banks, what's going on with the economy, what's the Fed doing, and how does that really affect everything that's going on. But another thing you could really brush up on is just kind of general math skills. And I know it goes without saying, if you're entering an MBA program, you should have a good handle on that. But to be totally honest, a lot of people have not been in the classroom for a long time, right? So again, taking myself as an example, it was 10 years between when I graduated undergrad and started the MBA program. So, coming back to the classroom setting was a bit of an adjustment. I mean, I spent most of my time at a Halliburton base in some other country, and then going back to a place where, okay, I'm going to sit in a classroom for 6 or 8 hours a day. Just getting yourself kind of mentally prepared to learn, I think is really important. And also, this isn't specific to finance, but just the MBA program in general. I think setting yourself up for success really requires, some detailed planning and time management skills. So that's another place where I see people get into trouble a lot during the MBA program is it's just general time management. You get more stuff on your plate than you can actually handle in a 24-hour day. So, I've been talking about case competitions and student groups and classes and all these things, and everything's happening simultaneously. So you really need to manage, A, your expectations on what you can get done, and B, your time. So, you have hard deadlines in terms of your coursework. You got hard deadlines for case competitions, and then you basically have to work backwards, figure out how much time you have, and then how are you going to get those things done. So the people that have had the most success are really, really good at prioritizing, right? So there's certain things you're going to have to say no to. And I think figuring that out earlier rather than later is really a good thing to do. So again, kind of summarizing, Excel, Python if you can, general math skills, and having a plan for time management coming into the program.
Those are some excellent pointers. Thank you.
Sure.
A good group of questions, I should say, in the chat. And so I'll kind of break them down by pieces as we started talking about them. So one of the questions is talking about, how much quantitative skills are necessary as someone is interested in a finance specialization. Typically we have students take the GMAT or the GRE to kind of gauge their level of ability in quantitative skills. But for you, kind of what do you think is required as far as a baseline in that area of kind of quant skill development?
Sure. I mean, the way that I think about it is going out into the world. If not looking into the MBA program, but looking back from graduation day, right? Anybody that's going to hire you is expecting you to have all those quant skills as a baseline. So really, anything you can do to brush up on statistics, brush up on modeling before the program is definitely going to help. I would say that there are certain people that kind of shy away from that stuff because, it is much harder to learn quantitative methods than it is to, go read a Harvard Business Review case on a company. But at the end of the day, those quantitative skills are what is really going to help you. So actually, there's an accounting professor named Michelle Henney who's great. She always says accounting is like eating your vegetables, right? It's like eating broccoli. And I would say accounting and quantitative skills are kind of like eating your vegetables. So, you might not necessarily want to do it, but at the end of the day, it's good for you. It's going to help you. And the better you are, the more marketable you're going to be. And it doesn't matter what industry you go into, having a good handle on those skills is super, super important. So I would rate them as a high priority.
So while not required, like we don't often require calculus, economics, or statistics, it's nice if you have a foundation in those topics, but they're not required because you will, if you do the 2-year MBA, you will get a foundation. You'll take a statistics course. You'll take some economics. We don't have you do calculus in the MBA program, but having that foundation in math will give you, typically we like to see like a level of algebra, and then kind of getting into, as you take some of these quantitative courses, they'll introduce you to modeling and things like that to fine tune some of those skills. Would you say that's an accurate statement, John?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess, clarifying along those lines, everything I just mentioned those are skills you're going to get within the MBA program. So you don't need to have them coming in, but, you'll definitely get them throughout the course. Jared, it looks like you have a question. Do you want to pop in here?
Yeah, so just following up on that, is there so I think an economics program that I'm familiar with in Los Angeles, they had, it was a Master of Applied Economics program. So they had like a quick boot camp type of situation where incoming students would have, 2 weeks of they would meet with whatever professor was assigned to do that. And they would just go over like skills that were things that you would probably have on your tool belt if you had like just come out of some of these advanced math courses. But like you said, if you've been not like, I haven't taken math since, it's been probably 5 years. So, stats and econometrics and stuff, but like calculus, like serious math, I haven't taken for a while. So I would probably need quite a bit of assistance in terms of catching up. Or, I've heard other programs have like some sort of website, like OSU has a site where I forget what they call it, where it will like train you automatically depending on, like, you'll answer a set of questions, it will gauge where you are or your skills are, and then it will offer you questions based on that skill level, so you can kind of improve that way. Is there anything that Lundquist offers that's similar to that, or it sounds like that possibly might not be necessary depending on what your skill level is?
Yeah, we make adjustments every year to kind of the preparation for students. Typically, we'll do boot camps. The program that we use the most often is called MBA Math. You can Google it now, or Sarah can type that into the chat. And it's a series of about 5 modules to reintroduce you to concepts in statistics, economics, some finance, and Excel. But what we found is the most important skill that students need to learn how to use is, if we can teach them anything over the summer, the biggest thing is learning to teach them those advanced Excel skills, because you're going to use that through all your classes, right? Because all employers have access to Excel. And so you may do some simple modeling and things in Excel, but then if we can get you some advanced skills, and then as you dive deeper into some courses, you'll dive deeper into Python or, other programming languages that may be required based on a niche topic that you may be taking in an elective class. But for the most part, the fine tuning of your Excel skills will set you up the most for success in what our MBA faculty have found to prepare you over the summer. So that's why this year we will be introducing a brand new Excel advanced course that will be introduced to admitted students starting in the summer, that they'll have different milestones to work on and gauge their level of ability to prepare for orientation on campus in the fall, to really get you ready. And that is the biggest thing that we found helps prepare students on an equal footing. And as well, students can do those MBA math boot camp classes to kind of prepare if they feel that they need personally some extra help and support. And we would talk through that with you one-on-one and kind of do some coaching. But we've got some summer homework assignments that we'll introduce students to as part of this onboarding process over the summer to get you ready so you feel comfortable and confident to hit the ground running when you get to orientation with your peers. So great question.
Yeah, and just one last thing I would throw in there. I mean, you mentioned you've done some statistics and econometrics courses. I think you'd be good to go. Obviously, any more stat stuff you could brush up on, but again, the more you know, the more dangerous you can be in the program. So any type of statistical modeling, like I love data-driven decisions, right? So if you can pull insights out of the data, with stuff that from your past, in addition to the things you're learning in the course, you're just going to be that much better. So
at the same time, we don't want to scare anybody away either, so that all these things can be learned and will be taught as part of the MBA program. So as John mentioned, there are examples of people that don't come from, a quantitative background or didn't take a lot of quant classes in their undergrad. Even though it may have been a few years, will still help get you prepared and make sure that you feel comfortable and prepared to take on the rigors of the quantitative classes in your MBA program. So kind of moving on to that, another point that both there's questions in the chat and kind of things we want to talk about. Or what are some of the internship opportunities that students would do in kind of a traditional 2-year MBA? You have that summer between your first and second year to do an internship. What types of internship opportunities do students usually go for? Again, it may determine passion and what industry and what kind of focus they want to do, but what are some typical internships that students do as part of their MBA as an opportunity?
Sure. Yeah. And again, it definitely varies year to year. The main goal, obviously, if you want to go work for a certain company, say you want to be up in Seattle after graduation, you want to work for Microsoft, your primary goal would be to get an internship at Microsoft and have a job come out of there. But that being said, it's also a great opportunity to kind of test the waters in a different industry. If you're making an industry pivot, you can really do that. So again, myself as an example, I came out of the oil industry. I was kind of looking to pivot into clean tech. So I got an internship with a clean energy company over this first summer of my MBA program, and really got to kind of learn more about the industry and get in there and kind of get my hands dirty and figure out what that was all about. Ended up deciding that I wanted to take a different path, but it was a great experience overall. A lot of our students do internships, again, with banks, whether it's in Eugene, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco. And people also do a lot of, kind of corporate finance internships. So think, internships with Amazon or Intel, companies like that. But really, the thing that I like to tell people is not to be super, super worried about how specific your internship is. You want to just get in somewhere and take something away from the experience, right? So regardless of if you're in the company you want to work for or not, again, put another tool in your tool belt, learn something, and really make the most of whatever experience you have. So, that kind of comes back to this program as not being a huge program. It's really kind of a smaller, more personalized experience. So again, if you're interested in a certain area, then faculty, myself, career services, they're all going to be helping you really get an internship in whatever industry or area you're interested in. So again, it's kind of a choose your own adventure type thing. That being said, a lot of different jobs come across my desk. People kind of funnel them to me. I funnel them out to the students. So if you're in that kind of camp of, I don't really know what I want to do, as they come, you're going to see internships from, again, banks and hedge funds and all types of different places. So you'll kind of get the buffet variety of all the different internships available. So Jared, did you have another question?
I just wanted to follow up on that. During COVID, a lot of work, especially in like the office building, white collar type work, has been moved off campus, so to speak. Have you noticed with students at the MBA program, particularly this year? I assume probably in the coming year it might be somewhat less restrictive, and maybe the year after that even less so. But have people been taking like work from home type internships where they're mostly doing and like how does that work? Because I feel like a lot of the skills you might get from an internship are things that would be amplified by being in person in an office as opposed to at home just assigned specific tasks. How does that been working out for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, COVID, it kind of cuts both ways, right? So on the one hand, obviously, you're not necessarily in the office setting that you might be with a, big cohort of interns. Say you're up at Amazon or something. You're not going to actually physically be in that building. But another thing, it's actually opened up opportunities in that, people have been getting internships in other places, other countries where they might not have gotten those internships if it wasn't virtual, right? So somebody's got an internship in South Africa, and I don't know if they would have, actually gotten it had they needed to travel over to South Africa. But, one of the core competencies, I would say, of an MBA program is being flexible and being able to adapt to change. And, really one of the things students have been doing really well is adapting to this kind of new, virtual work from home world. So again, it's kind of not an ideal situation, but people have been definitely making the most of it. And we still are placing a lot of students with great internships. So whether it's virtual team meetings versus, an in-person stand-up every morning, people are still getting that kind of interaction. It's just in a little bit different format. So
we've touched on a little bit of internships. Maybe if we could circle back to talk a little bit about outcomes. What kind of titles and positions would MBA students that are doing specialization in finance and securities analysis look for when they're looking to graduate? Are there typical titles and roles? Again, it may depend on, those pathways, but could you maybe give us some examples and some companies that they may work for?
Sure. Yeah. And again, it varies. A lot of people go out and become analysts or equity research analysts. So there's one company up in Portland called M Science, which has been hiring quite a few people recently. They typically get associates, equity research associates, that type of thing. We send people into kind of finance roles again at bigger companies like Nike, Adidas, Columbia, up in Portland. That's more of a kind of corporate finance role. We also have students that eventually become CFOs. So a student that graduated a couple years ago, Ed Rainier, he's actually the CFO over at Springfield Creamery in Eugene. So that's kind of a really nice role for sticking around Eugene. But people also go into other roles like business development and, again, back to banking. We have quite a few people go into commercial banking, and they're relatively happy, successful, and they have a great alumni network around here, Oregon, and the Pacific Northwest in general. So again, it's more geared towards that corporate finance kind of commercial banking type position. But that being said, you can really go and do anything you want coming out of an MBA program. Like if you look at the University of Oregon Alumni Network, we've got people from the C-suite all the way down the line, in every industry. And again, it has to do with your background. It has to do with what you study, your internship, but really if you want it, you can get it coming out of this program. So.
Well, John, thank you for all your answers today and kind of sharing with us a little bit more about the Cameron Center for Finance and Securities Analysis. So I want to leave with two final questions for you, and then we'll open it up to the group. Is, why would students want to study in Eugene of all places? We talk a little bit about, maybe why you chose Eugene, and then any parting advice you would have for students looking to consider connecting with the Cameron Center for Finance and doing a specialization in finance and securities analysis with the Oregon MBA.
Sure, yeah. Obviously the program is excellent. One of the reasons it's great to study in Eugene is, the quality of life is amazing here. And that, that's one of the reasons why my wife and I moved to Eugene. We were close to the outdoors. You can get to the coast in an hour, you get to the mountains in an hour. Cost of living is pretty good. And, University of Oregon is right there. So we, found a spot to live that was close to the school. You could walk to campus every day. And, it's just a great community to be part of. And that's also part of the reason why we didn't leave after, I wanted to stick around. So Eugene's a great spot. The program's amazing. The faculty are top notch, and, they all live in the community as well. So, you might get, be out at the bar or out at a restaurant, during normal times, obviously, and run into some of your professors or see them at the grocery store. And, it's really kind of a small town feel with kind of big city style opportunities, right? So we're, again, 2-hour drive from Portland and a quick flight to Seattle, Denver, San Francisco, Los Angeles, whatever you want. It's really a nice centralized place to kind of jump off. So I think Eugene's an excellent spot to live. It's a great program. And yeah, I'm really, really happy that I went through it. So.
Any parting advice that you would have for anybody looking to get started in the Oregon MBA? What would you wish you would have known before you started, or some parting advice that you would give?
I guess parting advice, there's so many things I wish I had known, but parting advice is really, at the end of the day, people just want to hire individuals who are relatively smart and work hard. So if you're doing that, if you're working hard and learning those skills, you're going to be great. The other thing I would say is, if you can build something during the program, that's a great indicator for a potential employer, right? People want to see work that you've done. They want to see that you're being proactive. And, there's tons of opportunity, but people kind of get stuck in, okay, I've got to do all my classwork. I got to do all these things. And they don't have time for kind of the extracurricular networking, and, career building stuff that at the end of the day is really the goal of the program. So really, I guess my parting advice is, before you come in, and whether it's University of Oregon or any other MBA program, set some goals and, make them achievable and make them specific, and reach for them rather than just kind of going through without any specific path. You know, if you're focusing your attention, you're going to achieve those goals. So really, just build things, be proactive, take risks, and have fun. You know, don't forget to live life too. So, yeah, and good luck.
Well, thank you, John. That is great parting advice. We thank everybody for joining us today for our time with the Oregon MBA and the the Cameron Center for Finance and Securities Analysis with John Lundquist. So thank you all for joining.